So the last time we looked at this, we looked at how the church changed before 1536. Now, looking at the last section, this before 1536, it suggests to us that there's not really a lot of religious change. Before 1536, it is all to do with Henry making sure that he has got power over the Pope. Now, the Pope has been replaced by the King at this point as the head of the church. But England is still Catholic. Catholic beliefs have not been attacked. The only thing that has changed is with the 1534 Act of Supremacy, Henry is now the head of the church. Now, initially, John Guy says that many saw the Act in Restraint of Appeals and the Act of Supremacy as a temporary squabble between King and Pope. People didn't think that this would lead to a mass change overall. They thought it was just Henry and the Pope falling out. The Pope has always, and the kings of England and the kings of Europe have always fallen out with each other, kind of all the way since to about 1066 really, kind of maybe even a bit before that. They just fall out with each other because the Pope wants to appoint bishops and the King wants to appoint the bishops. So John Guy suggests that, who's a historian, he suggests that people don't see this as a real change from before. Now, from 1536, Catherine of Aragon dies in 1536. So Henry thinks that that's the perfect kind of opportunity to make sure that they can go back to the church. But that does not work out. Anne Boleyn is arrested and executed for alleged adultery in 1536. I think she's actually tried and apparently is having an affair with her brother is one of the charges. And within weeks, Henry is then married to Jane Seymour. Now, Jane Seymour is the mother of his son, Edward VI. His marriage to Jane Seymour is also short-lived, as she dies in 1538, shortly after giving birth to Edward. But at least Henry has got a legitimate male heir. Now, what I want to do is, this is personally what I would do. Okay, I would use the information that I'm going to give you next to create a timeline on how Henry reforms the church. So I'll put the information up, but just so this video is nice and short, I won't talk through all of them. Now, 1535 really is when Cromwell gets into power. Now, we know that Wolsey has fallen, and Cromwell comes in as his new chief minister, essentially, is the job that he's given. And Cromwell is one of the main people to be pushing forward these reforms. Now, this, between 1536 to 1539, attacks traditional Catholic beliefs. So 1536, the Act of Dissolution of Smaller Monasteries. This one attacks your smaller monasteries, and it's those that have got an income of under £200 a year. Now, the remainder of them are dissolved in 1539 to 1540, with the final one closing with Waltham Abbey in March 1540. Now, the reason Cromwell is able to put forward the Act for the Dissolution of the Monasteries is because he conducts a big survey, something called the Valor Ecclesiasticus. And in your Valor Ecclesiasticus, it looks at the church wealth, and it looks at the behaviour and standards within the monasteries. Now, these inspections are carried out very quickly, but they provide Cromwell with the evidence that he needs. The visitations show that the monasteries are spiritually very poor and the religious houses are in poor condition. So it's easier to be able to convince Parliament that he can get rid of those monasteries. Now, really important one, 1536 Act of 10 Articles. This rejects 4 of the 7 sacraments of Catholic belief. So it's a way of being able to get into heaven. Now, they confirm the belief in baptism, the Eucharist, which is your bread and your wine, and penance, which is basically saying sorry. Act of 10 Articles is a really interesting one because it's kind of official now that they're starting to attack the Catholic way of life, really. Now, 1536, your royal injunctions, again, that attacks pilgrimages, and it also encourages religious instruction. 1537, your bishop's book, the status of your priest is kept vague, as is mass and purgatory, but again, it reduces their importance. 1537, Matthew's Bible is a Protestant version of the Bible. 1538, your royal injunctions order the English Bible to be present in all parishes within 2 years. It discourages pilgrimages and orders the removal of relics. Now, relics are things which people would worship. Relics have value in the Catholic Church but have no value in the Protestant Church. And 1539, the publication of the Great Bible, and then 1539 again, the dissolution of greater monasteries. Now, these are clear evidence of moves towards Protestantism. It is attacking Catholic belief. Now, some of the reasons why those changes are put into place. Your reformists, are people who want change, are led by Cranmer and Edward Seymour. They're unhappy with the Anglo-Catholicism established by Henry, and they want the church to be more Protestant. And your conservatives, led by Norfolk, Gardiner, they're quite split in themselves. Some of them want it to be more Catholic, some of them are quite happy with Henry VIII's version of Catholicism, but all of them do oppose a Protestant church. Now, the 1530s is a time when Henry really struggles to deal with these two different groups of people who are trying to take power. Now, Cromwell, like we already said, is one of those main people. Now, Cromwell has got increasing influence over Henry and increasing influence over England, having a more reformed religious route. He puts pressure to agree to the publication and distribution of the Bible in English, and he also issues the royal injunctions, and these attack your Catholic practices. He even follows up the injunctions with letters to JPs, ordering them to check that they are being enforced. The Bishop's Book, which attacks many Catholic beliefs, was introduced by Cromwell, although it was written by senior members of the clergy. Significantly, Henry insisted that the book was not published until he had read it. The other major evidence of Cromwell's influence was the ordering the Bible in English to be placed in every parish within 2 years. This was to be available for all parishioners to read and therefore ended the Catholic monopoly of priests as the only interpreters of the Bible, because Catholicism believed that priests are there to be able to interpret the Bible to give the message out, whereas in Protestantism, the congregation, the people within the church, can interpret the Bible as they wish. In Catholicism, they believe that you need the priests to act as a go-to between the congregation and God himself. Now, despite these moves towards Protestantism, there is evidence that traditional practices were being observed. Now, 1538, John Lambert is executed for rejecting transubstantiation. Transubstantiation is that belief that the bread and the wine doesn't just represent the body and the blood of Christ, but it is the body and the blood of Christ. So Henry always maintains that belief in transubstantiation all the way up until his death. Even though England is pretty Protestant by 1539, he still keeps that same Catholic belief. Then in 1539 as well, they introduce the Act of 6 Articles. Now, this confirms transubstantiation, and it also forbids the taking of communion in both kinds. Now, this is taking of communion in Protestant church. It's both your clergy, so your people within the church, and it's also your congregation who can take communion. Okay, but in Catholicism, it's only the priests. Now, the Act of 6 Articles says that it is only the priests who can take the bread and the wine. Now, 1539, with the Act of 6 Articles, is a really interesting one. Cromwell is actually poorly that day. He can't attend Parliament. It is the only day he was ever ill and could not attend Parliament, and that is the day that the factions who disliked him pushed through the Act of 6 Articles, because he wasn't there to be able to stop them. Now, the Act of 6 Articles is a political defeat for Cromwell, Cranmer and other reformists. It reverses all those changes that he's previously made, and it says that if you deny transubstantiation, it is heresy and you can be killed for it. Now, it is known as the Bloody Whip with 6 strings. It is a real defeat for poor Cromwell, who has pushed through those different changes for years. For about 3 years he's been trying to, and then the Act of 6 Articles reverses all of that. Act of 10 Articles no longer stands, and he pushes back the Act of 6 Articles. So, a couple of things you need to think about then. I would definitely write some answers to this. Was Henry influenced by factions? And how Protestant was England by 1539?